Okay. So as you said, okay, the Upanishad is actually the word or the idea behind it is like those that gather in the name of God or something like that. So these came from these, from what I understand. I'm not an expert. I just read a couple of books. Um, they call it the oral tradition. It just meant that people didn't write it down. They just sat, at the feet of these mystics and they told these truths. And and it eventually somebody did write it down, much like the Bible and the Gospels, from what I understand too. It was like hundreds of years later somebody finally wrote it down. But these have been passed on. Therefore, there's no author. And in fact, each Upanishad you can pretty much assume had different authors. And you can pretty much assume that there's a lot of time difference between the different Upanishads too. Sometimes hundreds and hundreds of years between when these started, but they're very old. They're some of the oldest written documents, just written documents that still exist in the world. And what's interesting about the Isha is that it's one of the earliest documents of like written words that we have on the planet. And it also talks about the origins of the universe. So where they started from was the beginning when they began to write some of the earliest writings that we still have, which is super interesting. I mean, they could have been like, you should eat the banana, but not the banana tree. That's useful information too, but they actually talked about the origins of the universe, which is like incredible. And very quickly, Isha is part of the first Sanskrit word of the Upanishad. That's what that means. And that first Sanskrit word, and I'm not going to say any Sanskrit and I won't destroy that beautiful language, but the word essentially means it's the first sort of line in the Upanishad. And it means all of this. And it has like a suffix on it, meaning know that all of this. Know that all of this. And that's what Isha is like a truncated form of that word, meaning this is the knowledge of all that is. And it also really comes down to that word know. So it's like, now hear this or now know this. It's like an announcement. But this is very important. It's like an obvious thing, like we're going to know these things, but it also is like it's in that wisdom of understanding and knowledge that we're talking about, because this really comes down to that in a sense. So it starts off with Om, it's a pretty typical Vedic thing. It's the sound of the universe. It's almost like, in the beginning, God spoke and the whole universe. They have a similar thing in the Vedics. So Om is like the sound of the universe. That it should contain all the vowel sounds or all the sounds that you can make. Again, we're talking about holism. There's the O in Om, which also the Zen people sort of get. It's the whole universe. It's the whole kit and caboodle. And it starts off with a beautiful thing. This is the whole, or that is the whole, this is the whole. From wholeness emerges wholeness. From wholeness coming from wholeness, wholeness still remains. And by the way, chime in, you guys, if you have anything to say, because I'll probably just get on a roll here. Um, I think it's beautiful. What I see in that is that each sort of thing is whole into itself. In other words, everything has its own integrity. And this is an important spiritual principle, I think. We can start with people or ourselves. Every person is a whole and complete person. They're not a means to somebody else's end. They're not incomplete from a spiritual standpoint. And then this continues on with the birds and the fish and all the creatures and all of life. Each thing has its own wholeness and is living its fullest potential at every moment, even if it's a 3-year-old. It's not, it's like that child isn't there yet. No, that child is perfect in and of itself. So it's an entire sort of way of looking at the world. And even if something comes out of something else, it's not necessarily tethered to it. Each has its own integrity in a sense. Everything has its place. There's another way of looking at this that's more like Genesis. That you can use the word fullness. There's been translations that this is full and that is full. What are they talking about? They're actually talking about Brahma, when Brahma is like the infinite possibility. like in which all life comes out of, like that magnetic field in quantum physics where a particle comes out of, that they have this thing above all the gods, and there's a lot of them in the Vedic and in Hinduism. There's this giant invisible potential that all things emerge from. And what this is saying is like, that's full. It's complete. Like even in Genesis, it's like God is complete, but the entire phenomenal world comes out of it. Like God spoke and the whole cosmos came. That's what they're saying. Or that's one way of looking at it. But what this is also saying is it takes us a step further. By that infinite potential, I'm using the word infinite already, birthing the entire cosmos, it doesn't diminish the infinite potential one iota. So it still remains totally and completely complete. This is interesting because it's like, that's not how our world works. Our world works with like, if I give Kay an apple, I lose the apple, she gains the apple. The whole world functions from this sort of standpoint. And it's a valid standpoint. This is saying the rules are different here. That infinite potential is never exhausted, is what it seems to be saying. Even if it gives birth to every known phenomenon in the entire cosmos. Pretty big. First line, at the heart of this phenomenal world, within all its changing forms, dwells the unchanging Lord. So go beyond the changing and enjoy the inner. Cease to take for yourself what to others are riches. Um, I think it must be said that each one of these sort of lines is like a mantra that in the Vedics you would repeat as a mantra. And you could indeed repeat this as a mantra, or any one of these lines as a mantra, just saying it over and over. At the heart of this phenomenal world with all its changing forms dwells the unchanging Lord. So go beyond the changing and enjoy the inner. Cease to take for yourself what to others are riches. I'll give you a couple of different translations, and there's even different versions of this in the Sanskrit. And I'll do this throughout that sort of have a slightly different take, or it's like a slightly clunkier translation, but it still like unpacks this a little bit. So it's know that all this, whatever moves in the moving world, is enveloped by God. Therefore, find your enjoyment in renunciation. Do not covet what belongs to others. So that's kind of clunky. Um, Plato actually talked of this too, as in the Phaedo, line 64, I have down here, the invisible always continuing the same, the visible never the same. Meaning all things which move and change derive their significance from their relation to the one eternal truth. And Plato and Socrates talked about that kind of stuff all the time. And there's a word that means enveloped by God. It can also mean the world does not stand apart from God, but is pervaded by it. Um, there's a book of Psalms. It's called The Psalmist. And there's a quote here that I got from a really lovely book that I'll talk about later. And they say that basically the same thing in a different language. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. And so what's interesting about this is that the Brahma, they're not saying, they're saying a Lord rather than Brahma, which is quite interesting. There's a cosmic Lord. The unchanging is a cosmic Lord rather than Brahma here. And we'll get into this as we get deeper into it. But I like all these different levels of gods, and then the supreme, which is like nothing, and then down to human beings. So, in other words, the world is steeped in God. The world is the household of God. God dwells in the heart of all things. I mean, also notice the fact that it's not saying that all things are God. It says it dwells in them. And so, therefore, it's like our life force, our consciousness is part of that spirit. It's spirit. And we are a part of it. We are not it, but we are a part of it. It is within us, and it is the animating force. So it's kind of getting down to this. Another translation. This is kind of cool. The universe is a becoming, not a thing. The universe is a becoming, not a thing. It's a series of changeful happenings. And the way that you enjoy it is through understanding that it's constantly changing. Therefore, don't attach yourself to preferences because it's moving. Enjoy all things by renouncing the ideal of a personal proprietary relationship to them. If we recognize that the world in which we live is not ours, we enjoy it. When we know that the real one indwells all, we can get rid of our craving for each particular acquisition and say, this is better than this. It's part of the all, is what they're suggesting here. And they say that you could actually enjoy things when you stop feeling so attached to them as your personal thing. It's not your personal thing. The suggestion is that you can enjoy things. And they say when the individual is subject to ignorance, this is the Vedic commentaries. When the individual is subject to ignorance, he is not conscious of the unity and identity behind the multiplicity, and so cannot enter into the harmony and oneness with the universe, and thus fails to enjoy the world. When, however, he realizes his true existence, which is centered in the divine, he becomes free and enjoys the world, being in a state of non-attachment to preferences. Non-attachment to preferences is at the root of the spiritual life. And this is in Matthew, in the Gospels, chapter 16, verse 24. If anyone wishes to come after me, let him deny himself. So it's like you need to, there's a certain level of letting go. Certain level of letting go. They say, and this is Radhakrishnan's translation. He says, sometimes this passage is interpreted as meaning, enjoy what is allotted to you by God. Do not ask for more than what is given, or do not covet, or don't be greedy. When we realize that God inhabits each object, when we rise to that cosmic consciousness, covetousness sort of disappears. But at the same time, I would say you don't need to wait for your consciousness to rise to some cosmic consciousness. You can just sort of not be as maybe attached or obsessed with, I need this thing, because within the spiritual understanding, all things have that equality within the unity. I know you've heard all these things before, but I think these things bear repeating. Wanton's paraphrases Horace, and it's found in a book called Palgrave's Golden Treasury. The quote is, "This man is freed. This man is freed. Mankind. This mankind is freed from servile bonds of hope to rise or fear to fall. Lord of himself, not of lands, and having nothing yet hath all." So as long as you understand that, then it all belongs to you because all that is connected to all that's in. The spirit that's within you is a spirit that's without. You're connected to that, and this is sort of like the highest value. Therefore, you don't need to sort of pick any particular thing above another. It's all part of the unity. And therefore, they say you can enjoy things more. I mean,
Are,
have
are,
have they hammered that point home enough? Yeah, go ahead, Kay.
we're still talking about cease to take for yourself what to others are riches.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And that's because, as I said earlier, um, there's one root to the entire universe. Even though everything's different, there's a multiplicity, there's one root. And it says if you can see the one root, then you don't need to chase after that particular thing or this particular thing, which is what like greediness and covetousness is about. When you see like God pervades everything, then you don't need to overemphasize any particular thing more than it just being a mere preference of yours. Anyway, yeah, it's almost like it's a lot to just even sit and contemplate. There's a quote
Marshall,
for, yeah,
I
yeah.
gotta go. I gotta go. I'm worn out.
Okay. We'll see you next week, or no, I'll see you on Thursday, maybe.
Yeah, and I'll watch the rest of this. It just
Sure,
looks
sure.
like it's going to be a lot longer than I
Oh,
can
yeah.
hang out.
We'll do this over a couple of days.
Yeah.
All right, good to see you.
Okay.
Hope you feel better.
Thank you.
I'll wrap
Yeah,
up here really quickly.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
This is useful. So I thank you.
oh yeah,
It's
good, good,
it's
good.
like I said, reading that book is like what's
Yeah,
valuable to me.
yeah,
And
yeah. And also like
yeah,
chime in. This is feeling very sort of like a lecture, but I knew it would be anyway. But it's okay. It's just like sort of sitting with these ideas and thinking about them.
yeah. Well, and it's interesting. You're going to so many different other um, texts for what this thing is saying, and that's exactly what what's meaningful to me. Like I say, I can just that is whole. This is full from whole. I mean, it's like
What does that mean?
exactly.
And then
And how does it fit?
and how does it fit? Yeah, I
Yes.
love that when I first read it. But of course, I had this like sort of spiritual sort of opening. And when I read that phrase, I was like, this is brilliant because what I heard was everything and everyone has their own, they're complete. They're not incomplete. They don't need to be fixed necessarily. If they're doing something wrong and there's something to be learned, maybe I'll say something, but it doesn't make them incomplete. And they're on their pathway anyway. Whatever they're doing, from a spiritual point of view, they're going to learn what they need to learn. And as a human being, I love it because, well, let me read Gandhi's quote and we'll get right back to this because I love this quote from Gandhi and he's speaking specifically about those two sentences we just said. This is so good. I mean, I kind of like Gandhi. I mean, I'm like, what's not to like, right? Okay, so he says, quote, this is, I don't know if this is in English. I think this has been translated, but still, pooh, this is gold. Quote, the verse describes God as the creator, the ruler, and the Lord. The seer to whom this mantra of verse was revealed was not satisfied with the very frequent statement that God was to be found everywhere. But he went further and said, quote, since God pervades everything, nothing belongs to you, not even your own body. God is the undisputed, unchallengeable master of everything you possess. If it is universal brotherhood, not only universal brotherhood of all human beings, but all living things. And I find it right here in the verse. That's what it's saying. If it is unshakable faith in the Lord and Master and all the adjectives that you can think of, I find it here in this verse. If it is the idea of a complete surrender to God and of the faith that he will supply all that I need, then again, I say, I find it here in this verse. Here's an interesting thing. This is saying, I'm pausing here and I'm adding my own um, editorialism. It's saying that you don't possess your body, it's a possession of God. But rather than just be detached from your body and say, well, that's not my body, or that's not, that you hear sometimes with the non dualist, it's saying that the body contains God. So if you do not take care of this, it's like you're turning your back on God. So it is not yours, but you also need to take care of it as if you're taking care of somebody else that needs taking care of. And so for me, it seems to put us into this like what I would call maybe the right perspective. You know, all this belongs to somebody else. But if I don't take care of it, if I don't take care of others, maybe per se, take care of myself, don't take care of what's around me, our pets, all the living creatures, then you're actually turning your back on God. So it's almost like more important than yourself. And this I love rather than the acceptance or the rejection. It kind of sets us in a middle ground. Yes, it's mine, but not entirely mine. And it's not entirely under my domain, but that doesn't mean that I just like leave it on the shelf and ignore it because I don't possess it. I sort of
I'm
love this idea.
I'm thinking of as you're talking about a responsibility towards myself
Hmm.
and others
Hmm.
as as a response to godness.
Hmm.
And um, I'm thinking of, I hear so often in so many quotations that, what is my path? Am I doing what my path is? Am I following my own path? And the response to that is um, often, most always, if you're here, you're following your path.
Yes.
And that really flies beyond me every single time. It's like, okay, I'll take it, I buy it, but I have no idea really what that means. I mean, if I wake up grouchy and am judgmental and towards another person, how they look or what they say or how they're acting, that's not God's path, but I'm here and
Hmm.
my reaction is this grouchy, judgmental reaction. Is that my path? No, I don't think so. But you're saying yes, it is, and that's the
Yeah.
kind of stuff that blows my mind. I don't get it. I don't get it. So, and I think um you're taking these Upanishad is that is what it said. That is
Yes.
what it's saying. And I really don't get that. But okay, I'll buy it.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing, and there's a bit of faith in it. And also, if it was obvious, we wouldn't need text like this and need to unpack it. We just already know it. So there's this whole other mysterious world, which is sort of invisible, or it's the world of spirit. How does it function? What is it? These guys, like I'm saying, we don't need to actually say that this is the truth. Like these guys, and also like, well, because it's so old, it's the truth, and so you have to believe like this. I'm just saying, isn't it interesting to entertain what they were thinking about? And then, as I'm saying too, how a bunch of other people were sort of saying similar stuff that we respect or that's a part of what would otherwise be like a part of the Western educational system as well. So it's like some of these things that they're saying are universal. And by the way, they're talking about universality anyway. I just think it's very like once I look at what the Vedic scholar said about these texts, I realize that each line needs to be carefully read and considered.
Yes.
And actually, these discussions are important too. What these guys are adding, what I'm trying to bring to the group. Think about this. And you can do this with the Gospels. You can do this, we know that some of these texts, you can spend an entire lifetime, but I'm trying to take maybe like a lifetimes of scholastic study and shovel it on us. Force feed it on us.
Well,
But, yeah,
it's easy for me. I say it's easy, but it is easy for me to be in faith in that it's like, God, I don't know where my next mortgage payment's coming from, or I don't know if this guy is going to come over and take care of my deck. And I can go, okay, whatever, and trust.
mhm,
And that relieves me of a huge amount of tension and anxiety to just
absolutely.
be in that place. Yet, anyway,
Yeah, and then this other thing about like sort of self-centeredness is like found
yeah.
it's a little bit later. I don't know why I want to jump on top of it, but I love this. Probably because I love it, is this idea that when those things do come through like that, then you praise God. You
And
think, well, you don't praise God. You thank God. That's praise is not the right word. You
and
say,
and
thank
I could
you.
and I can relax in that quote faith and it feels
That's right.
good. But for the other stuff, that we are talking about waking up bitchy and grouchy and angry and judgmental, that's not easy for me to say.
No, but
Okay.
what I'm suggesting, and I don't think it's made clear in these verses in the Isha, although it might be, that unity is not fighting with what is. That's what I'm suggesting. That's my take on it. So
Okay.
whatever it is that's coming up, we first don't say that it shouldn't be here or whatever. We like accept it. If it's a feeling like like depression shows up sometimes as a like an emotional feeling, then we feel into it. It might have some information, it might not, but like we create trouble when we say it shouldn't be here. But depressions can be, not always, but can be a very debilitating and serious thing. And that really comes down to mechanics in your life. Is the depression affecting your function such that you don't want to go to the grocery store when you want to, or more importantly, should? And so you just put stuff off and things are rotting in the refrigerator and you don't want to get out of bed for the day. I mean, there is a certain way of going with that where maybe you just say, okay, I don't want to get out of bed today and I'll lay that. But there's other depression and we know it. It's been documented and it is clinical where it's seriously debilitating. I mean that in a just conventional way. That's when we need to take some, I think that's when we need to take some measures. Also, the
Mhm.
duration of the depression can be. But we
Mhm.
live in a culture, and this is my opinion, we live in a culture that really loves to take pills when we don't feel good, depression or not. Um, we're turning away from what's unpleasant. We expect life to always be fun and or whatever, but rather than how it is. And this is what was my big epiphany, and that's why I harp on this. I just have a few things that I discovered that work for me, so I don't have a ton of tools in my tool bag. But the only thing that I can say with any sort of authority is what worked for me. And all I can say with any authority is it worked for me, but this is what I'd like to share with others. This is how I show my caring, because I said, oh my God, when I discovered that like I was just fighting against everything and that I don't necessarily have to, and that it's not necessarily easy just to go with whatever. It's like almost like a skill set you have to develop. Um, I wanted to give those tools to others because I don't hear a lot of people saying go with it and stay with it and be with it. And yes, it's unpleasant and feel into the unpleasantness of it. Yes, it's uncertain and feel into the uncertainty. That's scary. Um, it's not like it's not some of that stuff is not fraught with some danger, but you'll realize it's not as dangerous as you thought it was, and you can handle a lot more than you thought you could. And it's freeing to think that I don't have to be in a good mood all the time for myself or others. I mean, I find that incredibly liberating.
I totally appreciate what you're saying. I totally get it, and I agree. And historically, I I have thought, and I think sometimes is that the experience that I am managing, be it depression or illness, or because of illness, I have also felt that if I can, quote, overcome it or live through it, one or both, that my my um, success, if we want to call it that, or my ability to work through it, I tend to believe, and I think it's upheld with different teachings, that I have overcome it for my mother, and or I have overcome it, I am overcoming it for my children who may or may not have, I'm talking genetics, that that but to be able to change the past and therefore to be able to change the future. So, anyway, for what it's worth, I see
Mm.
your smoke coming out of your ears.
No, I don't know. I don't know about that.
Yeah,
Like, I don't know if it's going to change it for your children or not. I don't know.
yeah.
Um, I understand the sentiment behind it. I just because the Upanishads are so fresh, and the Gandhi quotes right there, it's like what happens with your body, there's a way of dealing with that where it's like what's happening with the body is not ultimately up to you. It wasn't, you didn't, you're not aging yourself, you're not giving yourself all this trouble. Um, I can say that from a conventional standpoint, but I also
Mm.
think maybe there's a spiritual standpoint, and it's being reflected here in the Upanishads. It says this isn't yours. What happens to you with your body and so forth is they hearsay it's ultimately up to God. But like I said, because there is that aspect that's God within you, it's like don't turn your back on it and don't neglect to care for it. Don't neglect to, like, see what works.
And I suspect that, our conversation about um, taking a pill, you know, is running away from it as opposed to, yeah,
Well, I mean, like I say, first move into it and see if
yeah,
the
yeah,
if like you got to see where you're at with it.
yeah,
Um, the pills are part of for me, the pills are part of the entire pie chart of
yeah,
possible ways of managing it.
yeah,
And I say if we're talking about holism, like from the whole comes the whole, we're talking about unity and wholeness and all, then I think it's in line even spiritually to say, don't take that off the table. Because even in the Upanishads here, they're suggesting that like even those pills are an aspect of God. Not it is God and God wants you to take the pill. It's all here. But that doesn't mean that it's the way or it's the right way or it's the right way all the time. That comes from being with, seeing how your body reacts, being with the reaction, seeing if there's side effects, sitting with the side effects, reporting the side effects, seeing if you can, but it all starts from that thing rather than the ideas of, oh, I'm not a pill popper, or oh, I would never take, Western medicine, Eastern medicine, 60% of that, 40% of this, and these ideas that we get into our head before we actually engage with anything like that. Oh, acupuncture's the way, or I'd never do acupuncture. It's like, well, just if if certain people that know more about the condition you're in suggest it, it might be something you might want to check out. And it might not be the answer, but I would suggest trying all sorts of stuff. And we're talking about medicine, but I'm really talking about life. You know, try it out and then see what happens. And then kind of, we'll try this today, or we'll try this week, or we'll try this next month, or whatever. And it's an engagement and it's an activity rather than sitting, contemplating, trying to get on top of it and finding one course of action that we're just going to barrel down. Because if it was that obvious, you would have done it already. Some of these things are very difficult, particularly pathology of diseases and so forth. It's an ongoing thing that continues to change, especially when we try to like manage it, because then things really start changing and we have to be on top of it. Yeah, it behooves a person to say, I don't know how this is going to go, but I do know how it is today. And maybe the same approach or a new approach might be helpful to today. And this attitude, I think, is helpful in so much of life. Like I'm gonna meet Joe for coffee. I don't know how he's gonna be today. I knew he was kind of a pain in the ass the last time we hung out. I'm not sure if I want to hang out with him again. Then you meet him today. Maybe it's a different story. You know what I mean? So should I hang out with them? Should I not? Sometimes it's like, see how they are. Drop your presumptions. Check it out. I could go on and on about this. Like, don't violate your own values, obviously. But sometimes what we do is in conflict with our own values. That's the real trouble. That's why people go to see a therapist often. I got two different things and they're in conflict. Something I need to do, but it's in conflict with my values or something like that. And I'm not saying drop your values and just do whatever. Um, it's just difficult. It's just a difficult thing. Not easy. That's why we need to dip our toe in and see how wet the water is each time. I mean, if it's easier for you, God bless you. I find it hard. And the only way to sort of figure out how to do stuff is to do stuff and then see how it goes. Because it's too easy to just sit back and say, I refuse. Or, yeah, doesn't go our way, or it's not like how we envision it, that we just drop it and avoid it and move away from it.
There are so many things in life that take an academic, uh, a left brain approach. And if I take a left brain approach, which is what I've been given, um, I mean, maybe it works out and I feel really good. And so I can take that emotional response as my go ahead. Or maybe I have taken, which I have done throughout my life, the left brain approach. And and I mean there's an aspect of it working out, or there's, I still don't feel really good. Things have worked out. And so take that emotional reaction as the stop sign,
Mhm.
but anyway, I'm just,
Yeah, I'm saying maybe the right brain thing, the only right brain thing we need to do, and it should be like the foundation from this spiritual standpoint, is what's going on right now. See, it's a question. I don't know. So you just start, what's going on right now? Like literally, like with your body or with what's going on. Drop into this moment, which
mhm,
means dropping away from the brain,
mhm,
because often the brain is doing a patterned thinking that we've done
yeah,
before, and it's using past knowledge in order to inform the present, which is actually a left brain function. Not bad, but it is a left brain function, and it doesn't deal with the unknown. It deals with what we already know. So the only right brain thing I think we need to do as the foundation, though, is like, what's going on right now, and go and head into that with a curiosity, but not a facile curiosity that says, I don't know and I'll never know. No, you're trying to find out so that you do know. But you also know that this is how it is right now. And you also know that's subject to change, most likely. So that it's a thing that you need to keep repeating and repeating. Like, what's going on now? How am I? Like, settle into the body, check it out. I mean, consciousness is almost nourishing. Bringing your awareness to something, even your body. It actually, I think it helps your body to bring your attention to it. When the body feels felt, you know, because it lets us know stuff is off or on, or it feels good or doesn't. Like, it has a bit of a feedback system, and the more we stay in our head, the more we ignore it, and that's not helpful. I think you just feel better sometimes by tuning into the body. Stay with it, feel into it. And we're too much in our heads. Get back to the body a little bit. Be curious where I'm at today. The problem is when you have something like a physical problem, and the body's uncomfortable, it takes that much more to sort of bring your awareness to the body. And then at the same time, it's sort of hard to ignore the body when you have certain types of medical conditions. So, so I'd say, like anybody else, it's like if one has faith, um, pray for a miracle and leave it to God for the miracle. And then in the meantime, what do you do? Well, we'll manage our symptoms, or we'll do what we can, or we'll see where we're at today, and just take it um, more at a bite by bite approach. Because the miracle stuff, the stuff of being cured, the stuff of that sort of thing, it's really not in our hands. That's a big, big job. That's a big job. And I think it is enough to pray. Prayer is very important. which is to say, prayer is very effective sometimes, especially when it's a prayer that's within the realm of possibilities and not something that's just couldn't possibly happen. But even still, that's why they have those, like, that's why they have these gospels and sutras, because they even said even the stuff you'd never imagine happening can still happen in certain instances. Anywho, maybe we'll leave it there for today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. And we've gotten